Is this another hidden Ethan Hawke gem like Daybreakers? You're watching Beyond the Trailers review of Predestination.
It can be overwhelming, knowing the future.
So what, you're a cop?
I'm a temporal agent. We prevent crime before it takes place.
What is it?
It's a time machine. Don't ever exceed the jump limit. It can be problematic. If you ever want to stop the Fizzle Bomber, you'll never get another chance. Time, it catches up with us all.
Ah, Daybreakers! A really solid little vampire flick from Australian filmmakers Michael and Peter Spierig, which barely broke even at the box office back in 2009 before it was quickly forgotten. Since then, Hawke's experienced a bit of a career resurgence. He continued with the horror genre, teaming up with longtime friend and former business associate Jason Blum for surprise hit Sinister and The Purge. And he found critical success with another longtime friend and collaborator, Richard Linklater. Before Midnight earned them and Julie Delpy an Oscar nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, and now Boyhood looks to be a major Oscar contender, already earning Hawke a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor. In fact, it even seemed for a few moments that Hawke would be Marvel's new Doctor Strange. But then he wasn't. So thank goodness for his longtime friends, as he reteams with the Spierig brothers for Predestination. The small sci-fi film has already opened in its native Australia, with a very slow rollout plan for the rest of its release, including, at least here in the US, a digital day-and-date release. Is that exciting for Predestination or embarrassing? It's a little too early in the digital revolution to tell. But while Hawke brings the star power, rumor has it Australian actress Sarah Snook has the showier role. Snook has also recently worked with Blum, starring in this summer's Jezebel, which also had a limited theatrical release coupled with a digital day-and-date release. That time, though, it was embarrassing. Predestination is based on a very bizarre short story by Robert A. Heinlein, full of twists and turns. But if a tree does something weird in a forest and there's no one there to be disturbed by it, did it really do anything at all? Which is a shame, because these trees are, at least so far, pretty darn talented. So as I noted in the open, Predestination is based on a sci-fi short story, and watching the film adaptation really is like reading, say, a Ray Bradbury short story on a rainy afternoon or late at night. And by that I mean a singular activity. And that's because the story here is so odd, but also so intimate, that I think to watch it with someone else would be distracting. It's like hearing someone's deep, dark, personal, and profound secret and realizing this isn't something you blab to all your friends, but something you keep to yourself and internalize. Now, that all said, how about, is it a good story? Well, yes and no. Like most short stories, it's more about the destination than the journey, and that's the case here, even though it's been expanded to feature length. Also, I have to say, there are several twists in the film, but the really big twist I knew going in. And I actually think that helped me to enjoy the film more, because on the first viewing I picked up a number of the subtle things that the actors were doing and the subtle little story elements. And so I was able to really understand the big twist at the end and understand what they were getting at. But I think that if I didn't know the twist going in, I actually might not totally understand the big reveal. It might not totally hit me. And I think that'll hurt this film in terms of repeat viewing. And I think another thing that hurts the film is that perhaps it is too subtle. As I said, you might not even totally get what the film is really trying to say, what the true scenario is with these characters. And especially, it deals really interestingly with gender identity. And I think it also might be too subtle in that regard, especially considering that there are lots of movies, television shows, and even animated series these days that tackle gender identity quite compellingly and in a much more forward fashion, not subtle as it is the case here. I also have to say that as a female viewer, I took some issue with the fact that it seemed to be hinted at that intelligence and competence are purely male traits. Now again, this short story was written in 1958, so you have to take that into account, but just be aware that in addition to being very subtle about gender identity and gender roles, it also takes on, kind of a 1950s viewpoint of that. And with that in mind, it's actually quite progressive. Again, it's hard to dance around all the twists and turns here, but I want to leave it up to you whether or not you want to know what they are going in. A quick trip on Wikipedia will fill you in on the basics if you would like to have some knowledge of the story before you go in. And to some degree, I would recommend that. You really have to decide yourself if you're someone who just can't stand any spoilers whatsoever and you'll risk missing the big reveal or the entirety of it, or if you don't mind having a little bit of a heads up going in. Now, finally, I have to remark on what an actor's dream this film is for its cast, and I'm sure any actor. Ethan Hawke and Sarah Snook have amazing roles to play, and they both really do a phenomenal job. The amount that they had to probably, work together on this is just really impressive, and I think they totally pull it off. And again, when you know some of the twists, you can right away see the subtleties in their performances, which make them all the more impressive. Why isn't Sarah Snook being considered for the role of Jean Grey in the upcoming X-Men Apocalypse? I think she's really a talent to watch, and I feel a little bad that both of her two big Hollywood films so far, Jezebel and now this, have gone largely straight to streaming and might be missed by the people who need to see it in Hollywood, like directors, producers, and of course casting directors. Very talented individual. And I suspect that a number of actors, aspiring actors, will pick scenes and monologues from this film to work with, because there's a lot of rich material here. And again, it's not getting a lot of attention, so they might not think of it, but if you are an aspiring actor or you're someone who's looking for something to work on, I think there's a lot of good material here. Although, again, you run the risk that no one's going to be familiar with it because no one's seeing it, so they might not totally pick up on the genius of your performance. So I highly actually do recommend that you watch Predestination, but on your own when you have like 2 hours to kill, I think to kill seems like a negative connotation, but really just, passing the time away. It's too cold outside, for instance, right now in the Northeast in the United States. It's freezing. Watch Predestination. It's available on screening. I think that's actually the best way to view it, and I think that you won't regret it. All right, so thank you so much for tuning into my review. If you have seen Predestination, I hope you share your own thoughts about it down below, and you can check out some more episodes right now.